Well, let's get another perspective. This one from the energy sector. It's pleased the government has given a second approval to the Trans Mountain expansion, but there's still anxiety about how and when the project will be completed. Tim McMillan is the president and CEO of the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. He joins me from Calgary. Mr. McMillan, good to see you. Thanks for taking time to speak with me today. It's good to have you come along to give us your perspective.
No, appreciate the opportunity.
Let's start with, I'm sure you breathed a sigh of relief at this decision from the federal government, but I bet you're also holding your breath, if I can give you that metaphor, a little bit over the uncertainty that still exists over the fate of this project. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. I think that the result we got yesterday was expected. I think it was a good sign that the federal government and the Prime Minister gave a commitment that construction would start in August. But in Canada, we have a track record of approving major projects. We have a little bit less of a track record of building them. We have cancelled Northern Gateway. We have cancelled Energy East. We had this project approved and under construction before it got delayed. So now the hard work starts, but I think we're all up for that effort, and I'm confident we ultimately will get it built.
Okay, so let's continue on this conversation around the timeline. As you say, the Prime Minister committed to getting shovels in the ground this summer, but we know there will be other legal challenges. We've just heard from Chief Stuart Phillip in British Columbia saying, yep, the court battles will continue, the protests will continue. So doesn't that really put the construction timeline in some serious peril here?
You know, this has already dealt with some legal challenge, but it has come out successful on a few pieces where the courts did dictate that the government redo a portion of the work. That has now been done. But you're right, I expect that those that have opposed infrastructure build-out in Canada are going to continue. They have used our court systems against Canadian jobs. They've leveraged social media, and I expect that all to continue. But Canadians are increasingly intolerant of foreign activists that are trying to dictate Canada's future, and I think that that puts us in good stead at this point. But we should take nothing for granted. The chief that spoke earlier talked about his concerns. We see a large voice and many voices coming from First Nations communities that want to see projects like this, and this project in particular, get done.
Yeah, Chief Phillip seems to be suggesting that, well, not seems to be, he is. He's suggesting that when those other Indigenous communities signed on to the Trans Mountain agreements and the project, there seemed to be a better business case for building this pipeline, and now not so much. He says that if they go back and rethink about this, they're making the wrong choice. What would you say to him?
You know, I respectfully to the chief say, you know, the business case is something that the proponent and the shippers have to keep in mind. They are all very much committed to this project, that global demand for energy is at an all-time high and growing rapidly. And Canada has world-class resources, and we're the best in the world at producing them. So the business case is probably stronger today than at any time up till today. For the chief and those that want to oppose this project, I think there's probably better avenues of argument. That being said, I think that this is well positioned for success, and those that oppose it have had their say, and now it's time to get on with building it.
On the business case issue, you know, the opponents suggest there's no longer a rush to get Canadian oil to Tidewater and off to Asia, because Asia isn't looking for heavy crude oil from Canada because it can't refine it. What do you say to that?
I think that that's based on ignorance as opposed to, and potentially ideology as opposed to the realities of today. Global demand is, as I said, growing at almost record pace. 60% of the global demand growth out between now and 2040 are going to happen in both India and China, those two countries alone. And they are building out their refinery sector, their refinery capacity. They are hungry for sources of energy, and heavy oil in particular. They can get it from the Middle East, they can get it from Venezuela, they can get it from Canada. Canada has over and over again been chosen as a preferred choice for resources if foreign countries have access to it.
What do you want the Prime Minister to do to, if he can, to enforce this construction timeline of this summer? Some people have suggested, and it's too late now, Parliament's about to, you know, adjourn here for the summer, and it won't be back in business till after the next election. Is a legislated option the one you think the government should have considered? Maybe too late now, but if this gets stalled again when politicians are back in Ottawa, do they need to look at legislating this project forward to block protesters and to put an end to court cases?
Well, we're 7 years in. This is a project that was supposed to be in operation today, and we haven't even really got it started in construction. So we are well past the time of urgent action from all parties, including governments. That being said, the Prime Minister yesterday was very clear. He is committed to this project. He's committed to getting it under construction here shortly. August was the date that he put out there. It is now, I think, incumbent on those that support it, those that oppose it, to get on board and to follow the law. And those that are tasked with enforcing the laws of the land, they have to do their job. And ultimately, I think for the good of Canada, we are a country of laws, and that will serve us well if we can all stick to a common set of principles and laws that we agree to.
How important is this approval now to continued outside investment in Canada's energy sector? What's the message this sends?
Yeah, I think it's the first good message we've sent in a long time, that this was an essential announcement and direction from government, but it's coming on the heels of years of cancelled projects. The federal government cancelled Northern Gateway after it was approved. They kept changing the regulatory system until Energy East died. Bill C-69 has been a red flag to global investors that Canada is not a place for investment. Bill C-48 sterilizes a large portion of our north coast. So we have said no, and that Canada is not a good place for investment, and our economy is not welcoming of foreign investment on many occasions. We have finally started to say yes. On this one, it is time that we support the economy.
Yeah, do you think that's enough, though, given the opposition from you and others in the energy sector? You mentioned 69 and 48. Both of those things, the opponents have suggested, notwithstanding the approval of this pipeline, a second approval will still drive investors away because they don't want to get tied up in the regulatory process.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This decision was essential, but is very much inadequate. That global investors view Canada today as a country that can't get projects done, where in fact major projects may not even be welcomed. And Bill C-69 has put a bullseye on the Canadian economy. We now have clarity that the federal government is going to push it through without the amendments that the Senate had put forward that we thought were very thoughtful. And that is really cementing in the minds of people that we're trying to entice to Canada to invest, that this isn't a country that will be welcoming of those types of investments.
All right, Mr. McMillan, thanks for your thoughts on this tonight. Good to talk to you, and we'll talk again.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate your time.